Yo, unOrdinary, man. So good. Like this is the series I'm about to talk about. It's so good. And if you have read chapter 273 that came out this week, then you know why I'm making this video. If you have not read the series, I'm just gonna say, stop what you're doing and just straight up go read unOrdinary. Easily one of the best webtoons I have ever read. And on top of that, it's like, it has everything I love about My Hero in it. Like, if you like My Hero, and there's a lot of elements you wish would be in other series, you would probably love unOrdinary. There's a lot of good stuff that My Hero does that is incorporated into unOrdinary, and oh man, it's so good. It's like about an underdog character that eventually tries to rise to the top, and the whole system and everything. It's so good. It really is. But okay, let's stop there though. Let's talk about chapter 273. So, John is a character that really sparked this video. Why I even wanted to make this video in the first place, because John is our MC. Obviously, we've been seeing him grow as a character, go through his, trials and tribulations, his ups and downs, seeing him at his lowest, seeing him at his greatest. We have seen John develop as a character, and, we have had part 1 that was about John being basically an underdog. Someone that had no ability, come to find out he has an ability, he's very strong, but he chooses to get beat down by those around him, bullied, picked on, and he did anything just to keep, himself under the radar. But obviously, thanks to circumstances and what happened with Sarah and himself, etc., he eventually snapped, and he started getting very violent. He started using his power, getting out of control, and attacking. That was John's origin point, so to say. And then we progress to the end of part 1. He beats down the entirety of, the high tiers, gets rid of them, and he reigns himself basically as the new king of the school, on top of the hierarchy. And we fast forward to part 2, and he's reigning, leading the school for the most part. His identity's out in the open. People know about him now. They know he has an ability. He isn't powerless. People fear him. And the school's basically in just straight up chaos. And he has a lot of anger issues. A lot of anger to where he can't control himself. He starts beating down people that even slightly disagree with him. And it shows that he became the very people that he disliked throughout the beginning of part 1. And John's character arc throughout part 2, at least at the beginning, you could kind of say he was unlikable. He was definitely an unlikable person. But then, in the latest stuff that's been happening, in this part, in these past few arcs, he's been developing. He's been reflecting on his mistakes, looking back at some of the things he's done, and is learning to accept his ability, learning to use his ability in a better way instead of resorting to just nothing but violence, getting rid of people that just make him slightly agitated. He is now trying to hold back. And I love everything about his character development, because one of the big reasons why he's just like he was, why his mind was so warped or snapped, why he was allowing people to beat him down but also to be strong again, was thanks to the authorities messing with his mind. The one guy in question that was messing with John and causing him to just freak out because he got out of line, he was being too strong, etc. And some of the authorities just strapped him into a room and just messed with his mind, made him relive some traumatic experiences. And we've seen just the fundamental problems with the authorities throughout the story. There's so many examples of it that you've seen through part 1 and part 2 so far of unOrdinary. But, anyways, John's overall character development is fantastic, because in the latest stuff that's been going on, he's learned to love his ability. He's learned to, accept himself, love himself, and to also be able to mingle with others around him. Because one of the other things that John obviously lacked throughout the story, until recently, is friends. He had Sarah, but overall, John was a loner. He would turn and bite the hand of anyone that tried to help him. He was not someone that you necessarily would want to sit down with and have a conversation with. He was not a likable guy, and definitely not someone that you could easily approach. But thanks to, him reflecting, and Sarah just being honestly one of the best female support characters I've seen in a long time, she helped John get back up on his feet and to be able to better himself. And so we move over into the latest chapter, chapter 273, and we see that John has, lost his ability. We know he's lost his ability, and he can't do anything. We've been seeing this for the past few chapters, and so the man that was basically faking being abilityless at the beginning is now abilityless. But Chapter 273 that came out shows a different perspective, that maybe John's ability isn't fully gone, which there is a lot of theories and speculation I have to this. And I talked about this in the previous video I made for unOrdinary, and I kind of want to add more on top of that in terms of theory crafting and what's probably going on with Chapter 273. So John, he quickly is able to break out of the ice. Like, he starts to dig deep inside of his own very soul, his essence, his energy, basically, whatever his ability is, his aura, and he's able to, he asks for strength, and he breaks out of the ice that's bounding him for he could try to save Sarah in the chapter. And you can see, thanks to just the way the art is depicted and the way his eyes glow, that in some shape or form, an ability activated within John. Now, whatever happened, we do know that it's probably tied to John's mother. And the reason why I say that is because a few chapters back, when Sarah was doing the whole infiltration into the organization and getting information for Spectre, we saw a person on the screen, a file, that was obviously John's mother. Now, we don't really know much about John's mother. There's a lot of mystery and a lot of shadow in that part of the story. We don't know a whole lot about John's father. There's, theories and speculation. There's been probably a lot of community discussion on it. But overall, there is a lot of shadowiness, mystery in John's family and whatever happened to his mother. And seeing the person on file that was a part of what Sarah was, retrieving, we know that her ability is tied to John's ability in some way, in terms of how he's gotten so strong, how he's been weakened, etc. We know that her abilities are tied in to some degree. And what I mean by this is that most likely the ability to kind of dampen, high-tier powers to make them weaker, and then even seal off their abilities where they can't really use it, like what's happened to Sarah, what's happened to John, is probably the result of John's mother. I feel like in some shape or form, whatever her ability is, has something to do with that. And so this means that the reason why John was in some shape or form able to activate some form of power in the latest chapter, Chapter 273, is because he's related with the very person that is dampening their ability. That's my assumption. I could be wrong here, but that is what I'm assuming. However, I do want to extend upon this and talk about that. So, with John's overall ability being lost, he technically got the very thing he's always wanted. Like, this is kind of going along with the character development I was talking about. John, since the beginning, he was trying to hide his power, act like he was weak, and mingle in amongst the weak. He didn't want to be noticed, but obviously he was forced. And we saw that character development, we saw that arc, we saw the aggressiveness of him. And he's always basically said, since he's been developing these past few arcs, that he doesn't really want his ability. He doesn't care for it, he doesn't want it. And he wishes he didn't have it, but obviously he couldn't get rid of it. But he now has a new door that opened. His ability's gone. He doesn't have it no more. Or at least for what we assumed until the latest chapter. And he, in the chapter, actually wishes he had his ability. He wishes he wasn't weak. He wants his ability. And everything about that is beautiful because it shows the culmination of character development that John has received. Because like I said, he was someone that didn't want his ability. And anytime he used his ability, he was very aggressive. And he had this different way about it. Like, in the chapter, he wants to protect Sarah. He wants to save her. And I know this seems like maybe something John has done in the past, like wanting to protect Sarah or other characters. But it's fundamentally different because this time, John isn't being aggressive because he's just doing it and trying to pick a fight. He's actually trying to be, selfless and actually trying to save Sarah in the best way possible without just taking things too far. And I think that's what makes the entirety of the chapter so excellent. It is honestly gourmet because of just how good it is conveyed to the readers. And I think John's ability has always been interesting. I've always loved characters that are able to kind of like, use other people's abilities. I know it's kind of a cliche to some degree, but I've always loved that, seeing how a character deals with stuff like that, with matching like multiple abilities and trying to fight people around them, and even showcasing maybe new strategies to those around him through the usage of how he uses their ability. Stuff like that. So just, overall, the latest chapter is super good. If you have yet to read it, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend you to read unOrdinary. If somehow you made it this far in the video and you haven't read the series, I just spoiled a lot, but I recommend you to still read the series. It just, even if you knew, reading it is still an entirely different experience. And I cannot recommend this series enough. I do hope one day unOrdinary gets an anime. If there is a few anime out there that I want for like webtoons, it would be obviously unOrdinary. Hardcore Leveling Warrior, and I guess Shotgun Boy. I would love to see either Sweet Home or Shotgun Boy, like, turned into an actual anime. I would love that. But, I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for everyone that tuned in and watched this video. I greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more stuff or unOrdinary-wise, I have a playlist for unOrdinary you can check out. On top of that, I have a link to the series in the description if you want to read the series for yourself. And it'll also help me out as well if you click on it. But with that, guys, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.